Hello?
I
Oh, shit.
am not going to buy a Ouija board.
You promised the people.
I didn't promise anyone shit.
You put that thing out there. You said it, not me,
I
not
said,
anyone else.
hey guys, should Dakota buy a Ouija board for our upcoming episode?
What did everybody say?
Yes.
And what did Amanda say?
No.
That's what I said.
Warning. The topics discussed on this podcast are subject to adult themes and languages. We seek to unravel the unexplained and unknown. This is Encounters.
Hi everybody and welcome to Encounters. My name's Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
And today we're talking about Ouija boards, or spirit boards, or talking boards, or what was it? Ouija?
A Ouija board. Ouija.
Which everyone knows is
The devil's board.
the devil board. I don't know. Yeah, no. The thing that talks to dead, evil people or demons.
It doesn't have to be evil people. It talks to dead people.
And it talks to whatever the fuck it wants to talk to.
Right? That's true.
Oh, so the history of the Ouija board.
So it started, we don't know, well, we kind of know when it started, but there have been claims that in China they have been using like talking boards and stuff like that since 1100 AD. But Ouija boards, well, not even Ouija boards, spiritualism took off in the late 1840s, 1860s-ish.
Yeah, it was right after the end of the Civil War.
Yeah.
With the massive panic that was going on with everyone's, like, relatives that were dying that served in the war, it was this way of, like, seeking communication with the dead. That's why spiritualism became such a big event. It meant that the living could interact with the dead. They weren't just completely gone from this earth. And that by reaching out to them, they could actually seek closure, because a lot of people never made it home after the Civil War.
Yeah, if you didn't have any identification, they just buried you and your family never knew what happened to you.
Yeah.
So this is why a lot of people were seeking out spiritualism. And there are these sisters called the Fox Sisters who were very, very big in this medium movement. And so it's said, like, the Fox Sisters, or mediums really, the way they would kind of communicate with the dead before they had a Ouija board was, I saw two main methods, which was table turning or kind of waiting for something to knock or hit the table or shake the table as you, like, spoke the alphabet.
Yes. They communicated through clicks and knocks that they could get. They claimed that they could get spirits to actually respond to yes or no questions and give them messages from beyond through channeling. And most of the time, the action that they would seek from these spirits would be knocking or clicking.
But the only problem with this method is it took forever. Especially if you're going through the alphabet waiting for something to knock.
And then they introduced the idea of channeling and writing, where they had this pen set up on this device, a lot like what we see with the Ouija board, like, thing.
Planchette.
The planchette.
That's a fun word.
But it's not a planchette, it just has a pen in it, and it, like, rolls around, and, like, the spirit could write in one continuous word. And we actually have examples of mediums that channeled people that went on to write 30, 40 some odd books. What's that name? What's her name?
Oh, not Pearl. Started with a P, but I didn't write it down for some weird reason.
Patience Worth. She would utilize the Ouija board and the writing scry, I thought.
The way I heard the story was that, yeah, it was pretty much that, but just the Ouija board. I didn't hear about her getting possessed. But maybe she did.
Oh, I don't know.
All I was hearing was that she was using the Ouija board and wrote, like, a bunch of books. But, yeah, she was illiterate. And it was just, whoever this ghost was like a writer.
And then the Ouija company, which wasn't the Ouija company at the time, but with the popularity of the Ouija board, would become the Ouija company, created this board by putting the alphabet in 2 rows on a board, yes, no, and goodbye. Mm-hmm. And giving everyone a planchette, which they say is named after the man, but there is no man named Planchette they can find, so it's like...
Elijah Bond, he got the patent for the first kind of Ouija board, but back then they didn't call it a Ouija board. It was called a talking board, spirit board.
And it was meant to be able to sit down with at least 2 or more players and channel someone's spirit in the room and talk to it. Seeking closure, asking questions. Some people say it was marketed as a religious tool. Other people say it was marketed as a board game. I mean, you can buy this in the board game section at Barnes & Noble, just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. But it was specifically keen among younger couples, they say, because it required 2 players of opposite sex to sit close with their knees touching and their hands on the planchette together to make communication happen. Mm-hmm. So. And then I think Parker Brothers comes in and buys it like in the 60s, and in 1966... For 1 year, the Ouija board outsold Monopoly.
Yeah.
And they say it was because of the height of the Vietnam War. Apparently, Ouija boards, peak sales happened around wartime, Civil War, if you think, when it was created. World War I, II, Vietnam, specifically, in 66, when it outsold Monopoly. Mm-hmm. And, people just like really... talking to the dead.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting because in 1901, William Flute, I don't know how to say his last name, he was the one who actually took over the company and took over production and named it the Ouija board. And supposedly it's because the board named itself. Elijah Bond and his sister were playing, and they asked the board what it wanted to be named, and it spelled out Ouija. And later it comes out to mean in Egyptian good luck. But I don't think it brings good luck, and especially didn't bring good luck to William, because after the Ouija board took off and started becoming really popular, he decided to build a factory to produce the Ouija board. And when he was during construction, he was on top of the roof and he was leaning on something, I don't remember what it was, but it ended up breaking and he fell off the roof. But he was able to grab onto the windowsill, and suddenly the window ended up closing on his finger, so he let go and he fell. And he fell all the way down, and he didn't die still. He actually had broke a rib. Later that rib would pierce his heart and he would die in the hospital. And before he died, he told his children not to produce the Ouija board, that it was evil, and I mean, it didn't stop it from being produced. So.
The woman in the room with him also would use the Ouija board later and ask it because a few family heirlooms had gone missing.
Yes.
The board named who went missing, and she went to her grave claiming that the Ouija board is a liar and a devil board and no one should use it.
Which is so crazy. I personally am in that same belief. No one should use this Ouija board.
There's also the literal breakdown of the word Ouija. They say the first few words, O-U, or whatever, is oui, yes in French, and then ja, which is yes in German.
So yes.
Yes.
Cool.
Also, there's lore that states that the woman that was with them when they were asking the board, they say that Ouija is actually a misinterpretation of Ouija, which was a woman whose picture was in the locket the woman was wearing. And that was her name, and they thought that might have been the spirit and everything. So there are some positive spins on the Ouija board.
Just like you were saying, like back in the 20s and all that, like back then, the Ouija board was looked at as like a fun game to play with the family, or a dating, like a game to play on a date. But to me, what I heard is when The Exorcist came out, that's when it really flipped the script.
Absolutely.
On the Ouija board.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the boy who The Exorcist is based off of, wasn't he playing with a Ouija board? Like, that's kind of true. That part of the story is true.
Probably so. Opening himself up to demonic forces, for sure, which we do associate with improper spirit board use.
Yeah. When it comes, even, like...
I don't know how easy it is for a child to defend off a giant demon, though, either, so I am not blaming this child.
No, what I was going to say is when you get a Ouija board, it actually comes with rules, and most people ignore the rules because they think it's just this fun board game. But even, like we said, the creators of the Ouija board were very like, this thing, it has power to it, so we're going to give you these rules, you really need to follow them, and most people don't.
What's rule number 1, Amanda?
The first rule is that a Ouija board is not a joke.
Not a joke?
Not a joke.
This is the most important rule, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You could be talking to straight up the devil himself. Not a joke. You think shit's funny, you think everything's fine, watch YouTube, watch these fucking 14, 15-year-olds play with it thinking it's a joke, and then all of a sudden glasses are flying off and shit's floating in the air and a fire breaks out and their nose starts bleeding. Okay?
Right.
So they learn really quick, this is not a joke. So this is number 1.
Number 1.
This is on another list, too. Reasons not to own a Ouija board. A Ouija board is not a joke. Rule number 2.
It says never taunt a spirit, but I feel like that's the same as Ouija board's not a joke.
Never taunt a spirit. Rule number 3.
Don't ask when you're going to die. That is a big rule, too.
Well, the thing is, spirits, just like humans, don't know the future. The future is undetermined.
Unless you're talking to a demon.
Well, I mean, maybe, yeah. Ghosts can lie. They can do whatever they want.
Right.
So, take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
Next rule.
Don't play alone. Which totally makes sense. Because they're saying... the spirit, like, whatever would be there wouldn't have any other energy to feed off of but yours. Like, then you're for sure getting possessed.
Yeah, exactly. I've watched a lot of videos of people doing, like, home-drawn Ouija boards with just themselves in a shot glass, and it never ends well.
Right.
I'd like to see these people deal with some black-eyed children.
Oh, gosh. And another thing is, it's just kind of like sidebar, but... if you're playing with someone else, then you have someone else to back up your story, you know?
Cooperation is key. Next rule.
Don't use it in your house.
This is major. When
I can understand that.
Utilize a Ouija board, you are creating a portal. You are creating a point of contact, a communication device to the dead or something darker.
Right.
And so, by doing so in your own house, you have the possibility, especially if you do not close or end the Ouija cycle properly, of inviting things to stay. Whether you do it intentionally or unintentionally, you do that.
And you never want to do that.
You never want to do that.
Ugh.
Next rule.
One person should lead and ask questions.
Yeah, that goes back to the whole idea of a medium, someone channeling the main thoughts.
And then another rule is someone should keep notes. but don't guess what the ghost is trying to say. Let it, spell it out.
Also, don't leave the planchette on the board.
Which makes complete sense to me, too.
There was a video I watched of YouTubers doing the Ouija board challenge.
Oh, God, I hate those.
They were under a dock somewhere, I believe, or in an abandoned factory. Probably an abandoned insane asylum. I watched so many videos today, it's not even funny. And they said that there was this little girl they were talking to, and she told the main YouTuber guy, if you look through the planchette, you'll see me.
Oh, no.
And he did, and he threw it away, within 3 seconds, and he was like, we're leaving now, we're leaving now. So, the planchette is a very important device, and I recommend not looking through it. Just saying.
Yeah, I saw that on one of those movies, too. But they also say leaving the planchette on the board is considered bad luck.
This is true.
What's the next rule?
Always end the session by saying goodbye.
Yes, you have to make sure to close the board, because it's like a door, and if you don't close the door, then anything can come through it.
I feel like Ouija boards are more like screen windows. You open it and things can talk to you through it, but they can't come out unless you don't
leave the board open.
Unless you leave the board open, or you allow them to do the things that you're not supposed to allow them to do, and then they break through the screen and then come through your window. Saying goodbye, taking the planchette down to the goodbye is like pulling the window all the way down and pushing the bar to lock.
Yeah.
And then dousing it in holy water and light and saying that, no darkness may enter here.
Right.
Next rule.
The power of Christ compels you. Oh, if it starts counting down, say goodbye. Did you get that one?
Yep.
Okay. They say if it starts counting backward, counting down, that you're most likely talking to a malevolent spirit.
They also say if it starts running down from Z to A, that is also the sign of a malevolent spirit.
I don't know why, but it's I'm about to get you. I'm going to give you a countdown.
Also, making figure eights or infinity signs is a sign of a malevolent spirit trying to exit the board.
Oh.
You're supposed to say goodbye immediately. Next rule, if a spirit speaks to you and identifies itself as Zozo, say goodbye immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Do not use a Ouija board in a cemetery.
I would never. I used to watch a YouTuber who did that, and then he said Zozo was haunting him.
See, my thing is, that's just utmost disrespect. They say ghosts don't even hang out in cemeteries. I
know, right?
Why would they? Creepy things hang out in cemeteries. Grims hang out in cemeteries.
Right.
Skinwalkers hang out in cemeteries.
That's true. Trying to get some bone juice.
I'm so done. Gotta get that gallbladder.
They also say don't burn a Ouija board. Just like with your screen analysis, if you burn the portal, then what do you expect?
Yeah,
you can't close it.
Yeah, if you don't end your cycle properly, there's also the idea that you're releasing anything that may have come in contact with that board. Mm-hmm. Symbolically releasing, allowing them to come through the portal, in a sense.
Yeah, they say it's best just to leave it in your closet. I have also heard of submerging it in water.
That's what you're supposed to do?
Mm-hmm. If you're starting to have crazy activity at your house and you have a Ouija board, to submerge it in water.
That's what they say to do with demonic items. Yeah, it makes sense to me.
But yeah, those are the rules. Do you have another one? I think that's all the rules.
No, the only other thing I have is a kind of a warning. It says that if you suffer from any major depression, you may not want to use a Ouija board because this type of communication, this type of spiritual interaction feeds heavily on depression and anxiety.
And it's especially if you get something that comes over that is not necessarily a spirit, but like a negative entity. Those things feed off of, making you feel bad. Exactly. So if you're already suffering from that, that's just going to be a field day for any horrible thing. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Let's talk about some of the negative interactions we see with Ouija board.
See, I had this story that I don't remember a lot of it, but it was in the 1920s where a whole town went mad, and they claimed it was because of a Ouija board. It started with 7 men running around the town naked, screaming hysterically, and after getting kind of captured and taken to a mental institution, they revealed that it was because of Ouija board. And like the next day, about 1,000 to 1,200 more townspeople were running around the town naked, screaming hysterically, and said it was because of the Ouija board. And after that, they have banned Ouija boards from this town in Southern California.
Okay, well that just sounds like Southern California. Like, naked people, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Ouija board's my ass. I just want to be naked.
And run around screaming.
I watched an interaction today where a couple of people were talking with the board, and it started to give personal advice to this woman, and it convinced her that it was her grandmother.
Oh no.
But then it started spouting numbers like 666, and this group of girls was like, okay, well, we're gonna say goodbye. And I watched this girl all of a sudden fall over and start screaming like something was jumping in her.
That's crazy.
There's also a lot of board movings. I saw a lot of levitations, where boards were flipping over, fucking planchettes were flying out from these kids' hands. I saw at least 5 videos where people ended up with bloody noses.
That's never a good sign.
Never a good sign.
See, I remember seeing this one where they were at, I think it was a haunted asylum, and this woman got thrown across the room. I mean, it's on video too.
Well, and that's why they say you want a big group to do it. Not a huge group, but a big enough group, because the more energy you have there focusing on it, the more that spirit can draw on it and give you interaction.
Right.
There was a video I watched today where a man made his own homemade spirit board, and he actually has a YouTube channel, and his entire channel is just devoted to poltergeist and haunting activity in his house. Specifically, he was having a spirit board communication where he went to set the shot glass down on it, and it completely shattered upon touching the board.
That's crazy.
In another video, the board catches on fire.
That's not good. I don't even understand.
Just like that scene in Paranormal Activity. Just completely gone. He threatened to have it exorcised if it didn't calm down, and it set a crucifix on fire.
What?
You don't need to reason with that. You need to send that to hell.
Right? I would have called... The priest would have already been on his way. That's funny. Yeah, so I have a friend who... He's young. I think he's 19. I work with him. And he was telling me about the one time he ever used a Ouija board. And literally, when he was telling the story, he was almost shivering with fear about talking about this experience he had with a Ouija board. So I guess he has this friend who's really into the occult and all that kind of stuff, and she talked him into doing a Ouija board at his house. So it's just the two of them, and they were in some living room or something. And he said that when they started, they did some kind of chant to like open the pathway to communication with these spirits. And he said at first nothing was really happening. They were just asking regular questions, weren't really getting answers. But then something changed. And he said the room got cold and it just felt different. And he asked the unit, like whatever was there, if it was there to hurt them. And it moved over to yes. And then he said to himself, he's like, well, it's just probably her moving it. And then he soon realized that his fingers were the ones on the bottom. I guess she had her fingers on top of his. So there was no way for her to be moving it. But he swears like nothing, like he wasn't moving it. And then they were asking it a bunch of questions. And suddenly he realized he was bleeding and that something had scratched his ear. And then the planchette started doing like the figure eights, and she freaked out and just left. She left the board there, just left him there, and just left. He said soon after that she had come back over. They actually had taken the board and threw it away on the other side of town.
No.
And she had, I know, right? And so she had come over again, and they're in his kitchen, and he said that there was a door in the kitchen, and they started asking if anything was there, and the door started shaking. So they started asking more questions, if it was an evil spirit, if it was there to hurt them. And he said she asked if it was an evil spirit, when suddenly they both saw in his living room what looked like almost like a panther, like he said, a giant cat type thing, run up his fireplace and disappear into the darkness, and that his cat actually attacked her. And he said his cat never attacks people ever, but his cat attacked this girl, and she never came over after that ever again. And he said that one day he was at school and he was walking across the field, and this wasn't long after they had done all this other stuff. He was walking across the field with a group of people, and he said from the other side of the field he could see what looked like a giant shadow looking at him. And he said, I know I was in a group, but I could tell that it was staring right at me. And then he said a couple of weeks later that he was in a parking lot, and it was on the other side of the parking lot, but it was closer to him, right? And then he said a couple of weeks later he was in his house, and he said that thing was right outside of his window.
Sounds like a shadow person.
That's what I told him later. I was like, you know that was a shadow person. He's like, I don't even know what a shadow person is. I said, listen to episode 2.
There you go. There you go.
But anyway, he told me that after that, it scared the crap out of him. He said he was at his house by himself. He told his mom and his aunt did something. He said some cleansing thing, and after that he didn't have any more troubles, and he said he would never ever use a Ouija board ever again.
Well, did he end up ever closing it with that girl?
No, I don't think so.
Well, she's gonna have some problems then.
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, he said that happened about a year ago, but after his mom and aunt did whatever they did, because I live in New Mexico, so there's a lot of, stuff here. Whatever they did, that thing stopped messing with him.
There's another major thing that seems to happen when trying to communicate with spirits using the Ouija board, and that is the manifestation known as Zozo.
Boo!
And Zozo has probably been linked to Ouija board.
Since 2009.
But Zozo is a demon.
Ooh, scary demon.
And is one of the major do not talk tos in the Ouija board kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Zozo and Mama. Mama's another one.
Mm-hmm.
But not as popular and as far-reaching as Zozo is.
Yeah. See, the first time Zozo was ever mentioned was back in, I think, 1816-ish, somewhere around there. It was in a book by Colin de Plancy. You get that name?
I did not.
Is that how you say? Yeah, this guy had a book. It was about a possession of a girl who claimed to be harassed by Zozo, Mimi, and Corpulent. But Zozo was the main SOB making contact with her.
And there are a lot of reports today of interactions with Zozo. Do you have a story about Zozo, Amanda?
Yeah, so the first person I know about who really connected Zozo with the Ouija board was Darren Wayne Evans. And he posted on a message board that he had experienced talking to Zozo. And at first Zozo was like really nice and he thought it was like a good spirit, so he continued to talk to Zozo. And then as it went on, Zozo became angry and started like cussing him out in Latin and saying all these horrible things to him, eventually saying that he wanted to possess his girlfriend. It's supposedly Zozo likes the ladies. Like, I've heard that he likes the girls. So, yeah, he was threatening to possess his girlfriend, so he kind of stopped talking with this Ouija board. Then one day, his daughter almost drowned when his girlfriend had like left her for a second. The water had turned back on, and it was up to her neck, and that if he hadn't come in when he did, she would have drowned to death. And then the very next day, she actually got an infection and was hospitalized for 14 days. And he said after that he never touched a Ouija board again, and he recommended nobody ever play with a Ouija board, but especially if something called Zozo was communicating with them, because he believed it was a demon.
I believe it's a demon too. Shit.
Right?
I believe
Every
all
time,
of that's a demon.
Yeah. And they also say they claim that Zozo was the demon who possessed Roland Doe, who was the original story that was The Exorcist was based off of. But I don't know. I think they're just kind of reaching there.
They might be reaching, but they might be right. You never know.
Right? I mean,
The powers of demons is kind of like not at our comprehension level.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's spirit boards, you know. That's how you talk to the dead or demons.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
None about Ouija boards. I don't ever want to own one. I don't ever want one in my house. I might participate in one if I am like with a group of people that is not at my house, that is not
Right.
I now know the rules. I now know exactly what to do if the situation arises. I'm not going to say I'm never going to do it, but I'm never going to have one in my house.
Mm-mm. I will never do a Ouija board.
But I will make sure we say goodbye, you damn straight. Even if we start and something spooky happens, I'll be like, oh yeah, goodbye.
No,
I'm not here for that.
I'm not either.
But I did find it interesting. I think Zozo is a really interesting thing, talking about a globally conscious demon that appears all over the world, and nobody can explain why. Multiple different religions, and yet this demon still appears via spirit communication.
See, I half believe Zozo's there, and I half don't, so that's just me.
Well, it all goes back to that human global consciousness, the cloud, you know?
Exactly.
But next week's topic is for sure going to be interesting. What is it, Amanda?
Jinn.
Oh, yes.
That's it.
The Jinn. People from the Smokeless Flame, the Jinn. In a Cryptid 101 session.
Yeah.
Get ready to be terrified, because if you thought the exorcism of Emily Rose or any other possession you've ever seen was crazy, Google Jinn possession.
No, don't Google. Wait till we tell
exorcism. No, you just gotta watch any of this. Anybody watches this, it's fucking terrifying. They just scream. We'll put some in the episode. You never know. You can find us on Facebook at Encounters a Paranormal Experience. On Instagram at Encounters a Paranormal.
Don't know why. My bad.
Feel free to send us an email at encountersthepodcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And until next week, I'm Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
Stay unpossessed.
I mean, that's some logical advice right there. I mean, it's still dumb, but I like it. All right, bye.